I made a rage game about a goose, and it worked so well that somebody threw their lotion. Why would I do this?
Well, first of all,
Rage bait and streamers are a perfect match. Most importantly though, rage games are easy and practical to make, which is very important as someone just getting into game dev. I wanted to try and make a game with unique mechanics and a handcrafted map, and so I came up with two ideas to make my game stand out. The first one was the movement of the player. What if there was a platformer where you had unlimited double jumps, but each one decreased in power? This could create moments where the player just barely misses long jumps. I decided I would make the player a bird and got to modeling, and I ended up modeling this goose. I rigged the goose and created a simple flap animation, and after a lot of trial and error, I was able to get the animation working in Godot. Now that I had the goose done, it was time to implement my movement idea. First, I gave it the basic ability to move around, and then after giving it the ability to jump, I tweaked the player's jump force value so that it decreased with every jump they took. I wanted a simple 3D camera comparable to like the one from Chained Together or Mario 64, but this was a lot harder than I thought it would be. So, like a good developer, I just moved on and decided my game would be stuck with a fixed camera. Now that the player controller was done, I moved on to building the map. While I was testing the prototype, I decided to make the green floor blue and realized that this actually made a lot of sense, because now the floor looked kind of like an ocean floor, which made a lot of sense for a goose. It also made sense since I never gave the goose feet because I was too lazy. Since I was stuck with the fixed Crossy Road camera, I got thinking about a linear map, and that was when the second idea hit me. What if the floor contained a current, and if the player touches this current, they get pushed all the way back to the start of the map? I honestly thought this would be pretty interesting because it's a bit different from how most platformers handle the player falling. But the question was, how would I program that pull? A more experienced game dev would probably use a hit scan that the player could use to detect the floor and use that to push them back. But I didn't want to do that, so I came up with a simpler idea that was a lot easier for me. I just made it so that if the player goes below a certain Y level, which happens to be where the seafloor is, they get pushed back. I decided that the game would take place starting off on a beach and added a little drink prop that mysteriously disappeared. I programmed the current to be strong, hoping that players would see opportunities to jump out and not completely lose their progress. Now for the obstacles. The only obstacle that I really wanted was a swinging hammer that would hit the player and knock them off into the water. But this ended up being a lot harder to program than I thought. As much as I tried, I wasn't able to get this to work, and I was pretty discouraged to see that it was actually going to be a lot harder to do than I thought. However, in my pursuit to create this swinging hammer, I learned about a Godot node called the pin joint, which is basically a tool you can use to attach two physical objects together as if you were striking a pin through them. This gave me a hammer that responded pretty well to the player jumping on it, but still wasn't really able to push them around. So I decided to make it more of a platform, like a hanging piece of construction or a wrecking ball. The second object I made was this spinning frisbee thing, which actually uses the same pin joint to connect it to its stand. The difference is I added a constant value to make it so that the disc swings around in circles, reminiscent of those spinny platforms from Fall Guys. Finally, for my third object, I took a much more generic approach and just made a moving platform. I didn't even paint it. This is just a factory-grade Godot platform that moves. But I wasn't done just yet with my brilliant innovations, and I wanted one more complex object to spice up the map. So I ended up creating whatever the heck this thing is. I was really running out of ideas. And with that, I had everything I needed to construct the map. As I designed the map, I decided I would also need a soundtrack for the game. So I just opened up a synth plugin in FL Studio and just freestyled on my keyboard for 30 minutes while changing random settings on the synth. And it's genuinely horrible. I went on YouTube and recorded several different stock Goose sound effects. It made it so that every time the player jumped, one of 12 different stock Goose sound effects would play. I also made it so that upon touching the water, a water droplet sound would play, and both of these sound really funny when they inevitably get spammed. When it came to naming the game, I was not as attached to the game as I am now, so I purposely gave it the most generic name I could think of. Yeah, the Mario Kart World menu is pretty cool, but have you seen the menu for Super Extreme Goose Ocean Explorer Quest Deluxe? Now in color. I finished up the map and created a little ending island and added a secret ending that I won't be spoiling in this video. With that, I entered the hardest part of the game development process, which really surprised me, actually ended up being publishing the game. I was very taken aback by how unsmooth the publishing process was. And it's all because I wanted to make the game a browser game. Most games nowadays need to be downloaded onto your computer, but there's also games that you can play through your internet browser, and I wanted my game to be one of those. The problem was, I learned the hard way that browser games have a much more strict limit about how much content you can put into them. This game was simply not gonna work as a browser game. It just wouldn't run on itch.io or even natively from the Godot engine. And sure, I could have optimized the game, but I want to be an American developer. 500 gigabytes, take it or leave it. Seriously though, I even tried stripping the game of like most of its objects and kind of just left the menu screen and a couple obstacles, and it still would barely work. So the game would have to be a download, which is not good because no one's gonna want to download this game. The name has completely backfired on me now because it looks like a generic name for a virus.
Hi, would you be willing to play my rage game about a goose? What the fuck is itch? I don't trust that website.
Turns out most people on Twitch don't want to download a suspicious exe file. So how did I get streamers to play the game? Well, I did it with a little bit of a soft skill known as social engineering. If you've studied cybersecurity, you know there's often more to getting someone to download a suspicious file than just awesome hacking skills. That's the easy part. Turns out a huge part of getting people to download your suspicious files is being able to convince them to trust you with your charisma. I'm not even trying to get anyone to download a virus. I don't even know how to make a virus. Comment below if you want me to. The first thing I did was say hi and just ask them if they want to play my rage game about a goose, which instantly got me banned out of most chats. When I didn't get banned for my blatant self-promotion, I would usually get told this: "That sounds cool, lil bro. How do I know you're not trying to give me a virus?" Now, the inexperienced social engineer would probably try to convince the streamer that they aren't giving them a virus. But my instinct told me to make a joke out of it. So every time a streamer asked me to prove that my game wasn't a virus, I would just straight up tell them it was, and that I fully intend to mine Bitcoin off of their PC. And this would, actually put them at ease because they'd realize, oh, okay, a real scammer probably would never actually admit to it. This guy's joking, and maybe he actually has a cool game. The first victim being a streamer by the name of That Black Kid Omar, who, huge shout out to him, was the first person willing to download my game and ignore his computer begging him not to.
Who's Lufa? Lufa made a game and he wants me to play it, but I'm sketched out by people in here, so I'm just gonna go check his YouTube. I feel like it's legit. People who try to troll, they don't stay for this long, and I feel like you look normal. You seem normal, I should say.
After playing the game for like 1 minute, Omar instantly realized what I was trying to do with my game and was already getting a bit tilted nonetheless.
This is genuine rage bait. This is already pissing me off. Yo, this is actually pissing me off already. Yo. Okay. Yo, fuck this game. Fuck this game.
I actually started to get really excited because I noticed that his chat was really engaging with the game, and Omar seemed to be having a good amount of fun too. And even though he wasn't having the easiest time, he told me that he thought the game had potential to blow up, which was really cool to hear. As Omar kept on trying to beat the first few jumps, he actually started to learn the game's secret tech and realized that he could jump out of the water to recover any jump he missed. But in the end, it was simply a depth perception issue and he really couldn't get that far.
Last one, guys. Last one. Seriously. No. Last one. I promise. Last one.
The next streamer I got to play the game actually beat it, and in like only 50 minutes. Now for reference, I can beat the game in like 7 to 8 minutes since I designed every jump, but as far as we're concerned, this is the best that it can be done by an average citizen. This individual suffered a lot, but was very insistent on beating the game. And they went all the way to the end where they actually managed to do a skip I didn't even know existed and get through a huge portion of the end game. I was really hyped because now I had a champion, someone who actually beat the game that I could include in this video to prove that it's possible. But let's just say, after hanging out in his chat, the streamer chose to use a word that I was very surprised was inside of his vocabulary, and I do not want to make him the face of my game now. While I was able to get a couple more streamers to look into the game, most of them only looked at the screenshots and said the goose was cute.
That is fucking cute. I like that.
Or just gave it a couple minutes of trying before giving up. Except for the real champion, LiamConor. underscore. This was a streamer full of pure will and coconut water. Liam saw Windows trying to protect him from downloading my exe. And you know what? He downloaded that exe anyways. And as soon as he loaded into the game, it was like something instantly clicked. Liam used the momentum of the hammers. He used every jump he had. He played the game like he was trained to do so.
What's this music?
But as much as he was a natural, the game's designed to rage bait him was also working better on him than anyone else. The mistakes he made, like, they were actually really getting to him. He genuinely started to crash out.
My nan can beat this game. Chat, I genuinely want all of you to...
I mean, now, Liam's one of the nicest streamers I encountered while making this video, but his chat, on the other hand, has to be by far the meanest. And they were vehemently roasting him for every jump he missed. And this did not help. He genuinely looked like he was going to cry. With every jump that Liam missed, every recovery he fumbled, he became more and more rage baited. Until he got really far, missed a crucial jump, and actually threw something at the wall in rage, which I was just shocked at. I can't believe a game I made can produce this kind of emotion. He took a brief hiatus before returning to continue the game until he got so far and decided to put the game down for now so he could watch TikToks with his chat.
Chat, if this is what is on your For You pages, I'm actually kind of jealous.
I would highly recommend checking him out because he's actually a really fun and chill streamer. I think this was a really helpful game for me to make because while it did teach me a little bit about game design, it really taught me a lot more about the publishing process. Not everyone is a pro gamer. Hey, like I said, I can beat the game in 8 minutes. If you want to try to play the game yourself, it'll be in the description. And if you can DM me proof that you were able to get to the end, I will pin your name in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'm Lufa.